So Paraguay, I was called Spanish speaking, so I definitely thought I was just gonna speak Spanish. Um, so the Spanish in Paraguay is actually even it's different there too. It's very cut off. They close their mouths a lot when they talk, so they're not articulating very well. And when they speak Spanish, it's kind of just like, okay, I understand what you're saying, but I kind of like it, you could articulate it better, or I didn't get all that sometimes. Like they don't like saying their s's when they say más o menos, which is like so so. They would say like más o menos, and it's like, oh, okay, like I understood what you said. You didn't have the s there, so um, and then getting there, speaking Spanish before the mission, I thought, oh, this is gonna be great. I already speak the language, and I remember going into my first lunch cita or what would
Appointment.
yeah, my first lunch appointment. Um, the hermana was just like, "Oh, baite copio, elder," and I'm like, "Oh, hola!" Like, I have no idea what that means, and my companion just looks at it. He's just like, "Oh, it just means like hello or like or what's up." I'm like, "Oh, okay. What was that?" And like, "Guarani," and like, so they actually speak that. And it's like, yeah, they actually speak that here. It's like fluently, and then whenever that question is asked, all the members go on a rampage. They're all just like, Elder, Guarani is the second official language of Paraguay. Like, it is a language. We speak it here. It is part of our culture. And then just go off about how important this language is to them, and which is why they all still speak it. And you just figure, well, I guess I'm gonna have to learn something. And you go picking it up as you go. The funnest thing to do is learning Mishimi, which is like a little bit, because something that all the missionaries learned is that the members love it. They'll ask you, oh, like, do you speak Guarani? And then you'll say, Mishimi no mas, and they'll all laugh. It's a never dying joke. It will always be a joke. Members will always laugh, and it'll sound like you know Guarani because you're saying Mishimi. Or just start when you'll start saying hi to people. You'll start even answering the phone and start saying "Baite copio," or "Ipora," which means I'm doing well or I'm good. Is how the response after would be. Later on, there are some missionaries who actually get really dedicated to it, and they start learning more phrases and they start learning to communicate more. Um, Other missionaries kind of focus on maybe like I was a missionary that kind of focused on at least saying phrases and the phrases getting me by, um, like saying if we could say a prayer, right, and that would be like Mava Japota Nyanimboe, and the member or the investigator would like that. Honestly, like it's something tender and it's something worth even putting in effort. There are missionaries who don't want to, but it's definitely an asset on the mission, especially in Asuncion North, because of how much more they speak it there. Everywhere they speak it quite a bit. So once you start saying phrases like that, it makes an automatic relationship with the person. Like you ask them like even simple questions like, oh, like do you have water, or dero like do you have water, or stuff like that, and they'll just automatically just be appealed to you because you're trying, and it's something that helps a lot. It's also fun. It's also really fun to like go along with the lingo, and like even now like there are things that wa'u forever will be embedded um, into my vocabulary, because in Paraguay or in Guarani, people would be like, "Oh, wa'u, you went there." Like for in literal translation, be for fake or supposedly, but it just sounds so much better when you say wa'u. So forever it'll be a thing, or just when people are about to slip, like hake, which is like watch out. Um, so even now, I'll say it to people on campus, or I'll say it to my roommates, or they'll do something like hake, like what? Oh, I don't know. I'm sorry. Like, that's not real. I'm sorry. So it's pretty fun, honestly. You pick up a lot more than what you think. Um, Guarani is like a really fun language. I actually would love to learn it more. They have a Book of Mormon in Guarani as well. No one can read it though. No one in Paraguay can read this book. By the way, it exists, but whenever we seem to give it out, they're like, oh, this is Guarani ite. And it's like, it means like pure Guarani. And they're like, well, what's the difference? Like, oh, well, we speak Jopara technically, not Guarani. And it's like, okay, what's that? It's like, oh, that's like a mixture of Spanish and Guarani. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, they have this book. You can have it. And they're like, okay, well, I'm not going to read it because I just have a Spanish one and I can read that one. So it's really interesting because no one actually speaks Guarani there except like the elderly people. The elderly people, there are some that just don't actually know Spanish. They'll just speak to you in pure Guarani, and you basically kind of have to guess around. I think it took me at least, I think, a year, around my halfway point of my mission, where I started to pick out words in a sentence where I could actually understand the sentence, but mostly because of 4 key words that were said that I knew that were being said. If you know the basic words like areko, which is I have, or like she, me, de, you, like you start to pick these up and you start to like understand the sentences they're saying to you. But for the most part, it just comes. It just talking with the people, talking with your companions, learning how to say these funny phrases. It just all comes to you because it's just so much fun to say it. It's a lot more fun to learn it than to not learn Guarani at all. In Mexico, they use tú and usted. So talking to my mom, I would speak in usted. So I would just be like, oh, sí, mamá, ¿y qué quieres? O, ¿qué puedo hacer para usted? And in Guarani, in Paraguay, it's all in voz. So it's like, ¿y qué quieres? Or, venina un poco, which is like, come over here. And veni is in voz, and na is not an actual Spanish word. Like, I don't know where that comes from, but they'll be like, venina un poco, meaning come here a little bit, as opposed to in Mexican Spanish, it was like, puedes venir para acá? So like, can you come over here? So they'll say these things and you'll kind of like get the gist of it. It's just not kind of what the Spanish that I learned. And yeah, it's really funny. They're speaking in voz and then just adding like the little words like na and pio. They add that a lot. Or co, like they'll be like verdad co es, and it's like it's true, and I would be like eso es verdad, and so it means the same thing. Just in Paraguay, they're adding all these extra words, or they're saying it in the voz tense, so it just sounds different or it sounds weird. So